Hello everyone, welcome to QCOL. So today let us study chapter 4, what books and burials tell us. Okay, so in this chapter we are going to study about the Vedic period. In the last chapter we learned about the Indus Valley civilization or the Harappan civilization. Okay, so in this chapter we are going to study about the Vedic period, that is after the Harappan civilization. Okay, so we will know about one of the oldest books in the world, that is the Vedas. We can learn about Vedas in this chapter. Next, we will learn how historians studied the Rigveda. Okay. Next, we will learn about the battles, horses, carts, and chariots in the at the time of Rigveda. Okay. Next, we will learn how people were described. So, what words were used to describe people? Okay, so this is all in the northern part of India. Okay, so there are two parts in this chapter, that is books and burials, right? So, the books part come in the northern India, and at the same time, we will study what happened in the southern part of India. Okay, that is about megaliths and or megaliths and burials. Okay, so we will know about the story of megaliths, and archaeologists found some burials, and according to that they found out that there were social differences during that time, and archaeologists also found a burial spot for certain families. So we will get to know that same burial spot, if the same burial spot was used for certain families. And we will learn about the special burial at Inamgaon, and we will learn about the occupations at Inamgaon. Okay, so these are all the topics we are going to learn in this chapter. Before getting to know about our one of the world's oldest books, we have to know when the oldest books of the world were composed. Okay, so first we in the first two chapters we studied about the Stone Age, that is Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and the Neolithic age, that comes under the Stone Age, as in this period the usage of stone was extensive. Okay, next in the third chapter we studied about the Indus Valley or the Harappan civilization, that lasted from 3300 BCE to 1900 BCE. Okay, so next comes the Vedic period. So Vedic period is divided into two parts. Okay, that is Rigvedic or the early Vedic period and the later Vedic period. Okay, so in this chapter, books and what books and burials tells us, we are going to study about the early Vedic period or the Rigveda period, that was 1500 BCE to 1000 BCE. Okay, so this was the period of Rigveda. Okay, so the one of the oldest book in the world, that is Rigveda, was composed in 1500 BCE. Okay, so in the next chapter, Kings, Kingdoms, and Early Republic, we are going to study about the later Vedic period, that comes in the Iron age. So the early Vedic period comes under the Chalcolithic or the Bronze Age, so the later stages of the Bronze Age, and the later Vedic period comes under the Iron Age. Okay, so this is the timeline. So now let us know about the oldest book in the world, that is Rigveda. Now let us learn about the oldest books in the world, that is the Vedas. Okay, what is the meaning of Veda? Veda means knowledge. Okay, so Vedas are the oldest books in the world available. Okay, so there are four Vedas, that is Rig Veda, Samaveda, Yajurveda, and Atharvana Veda. So Rig Veda is a book of hymns. Samaveda is a book of music, which gives us knowledge about music. Yajurveda is the book of rituals, which gives us knowledge how to perform the rituals. So that kind of things. Okay. Next, Atharvana Veda. This is the book of magic spells and charms. So these are the four Vedas. So in this chapter, we are going to study in detail about the Rigveda. Okay. So Rigveda was composed 3500 years ago, that is 1500 BCE. Okay, so Rigveda consisted of more than 1,000 hymns or suktas. So Rigveda consisted of more than 1,000 well said hymns or suktas. Okay, so these hymns were written in the praise of gods and goddesses. So there were three important gods mentioned in the Rigveda. So they are Lord Agni, Lord Indra, and Soma. Okay, so Agni is the god of fire, and Indra is a warrior god. Soma is a special plant used to prepare a special type of drink. Okay, so Lord Agni, Lord Indra, and Soma were the three important gods mentioned in the Rig Veda. Okay, so who composed these hymns? These hymns were composed by sages and rishis. Okay, so how they taught the hymns to the students by reciting and making them to memorize the hymns. So these hymns were not in a written form. This was orally passed down knowledge. Okay, and these hymns were written in the Vedic or the old Sanskrit language. Okay, so often these hymns were orally passed down knowledge. They were not in a written form. Okay. Later so today we have the written form of the Vedas, right? So we got the printed or the written form of the Vedas, that is less than 200 years ago. Okay, till then it was only orally passed down, and the Rigveda is uh, recited and heard rather than reading it. Okay, so they recite and hear to it, they don't read it like a book. Okay, so this is all about the oldest book in the world, that is Rigveda. Okay, so we learned that the Rigveda was composed in the Vedic Sanskrit language, unlike the Sanskrit we get to learn these days. Okay, so the old Sanskrit is very much different from the Vedic Sanskrit. Okay, so the Sanskrit language is from the family of Indo-European family of languages. So this Indo-European family of languages includes the Indian languages such as Assamese, Gujarati, Hindi, and Kashmiri, and the European languages such as English, French, German, Italian, and Spanish. So, all these languages belong to the Indo European family of languages. They are called a family of languages because so they have the original words that are similar. Okay, that is why they are called a family of languages. So, for example, uh, so so in Sanskrit we call matra. Okay, so in English we call mother. Okay, and in Hindi we call ma. So we can hear that it sounds very much similar, and the original words of all these languages are similar. Okay, so that is why they are called a family of languages. And the same way, the languages spoken in the northeast part of India belongs to the Tibeto-Burman family of languages. And languages such as Telugu, Kannada, Tamil, Malayalam belong to the Dravidian family. And the language spoken in the region of Jharkhand and in the central part of Asia, that languages comes under the Austro-Asiatic family of languages. Okay, so this is how the languages are grouped. Okay, we also got to know why they are called a family of languages. Okay, now let us learn how the historians studied the Rigveda. Okay, so we know about the historians and archaeologists, right? They examine the past remains, and they also excavate burials, and they find out about the past. Okay, so what historians and archaeologists did was they examined the written sources, that is the Rigveda. Okay, so they examined the Rigveda, and they found the hymns written in the Rigveda were in the form of dialogues. Okay, so the hymns written in the Rigveda were in the form of dialogues. Okay, that is a conversation between two or more people. Okay, so in the textbook, they have given one such hymn or the conversation of a sage named Vishwamitra and the two rivers basin Satluj. So these two rivers are the tributary rivers of river Indus. Okay, they were worshipped as the goddesses. So the conversation is between the sage Vishwamitra and the two rivers. Okay, so Vishwamitra, O rivers, come down from the mountains like two swift horses, like two shiny cows that lick their calves. You move like chariots to the sea through the power of Indra. You are full of water and wish to unite with one another. The rivers replied, we who are full of water move along the path the gods have made for us. Once we start flowing, we cannot be stopped. Why do you pray to us, O sage? Okay, so again, Vishwamitra replies, O sisters, please listen to me. The singer who has come from a distance with his chariots and carts, let your waters not rise above our axles so that we can cross safely. He prayed to the goddesses, that is the two rivers not to rise above the axles, so that they can cross the river safely, so that they can travel safely. The rivers replied, "We will listen to your prayers so that you can cross safely." So even the rivers agreed to that. Okay, so this is a hymn which is in the form of dialogue from the Rigveda. Okay, so historians point out that this hymn was composed in the area where these rivers flow. Okay, so they also suggest that the sage lived in the society where horses and cows were valued animals. That is why the rivers are compared to horses and cows. Other rivers, especially the Indus and its tributaries and the Saraswati, are also named in the hymns. The Ganga and Yamuna are named only once. So in the Rigveda, we can find the uh, name of river Indus and its tributaries, and also the name of river Saraswati. Okay, so there is also a mention of river Ganga and Yamuna, but only once. Okay, so this is how historians studied the Rigveda. Okay, so this is how they examined and got to know that the hymns written in the Rigveda were in the form of dialogues. Okay, so this is all about how the historians studied the Rigveda. Now let us learn about the cattle, horses, prayers, and battles during the time of the Rigveda. Okay, so during the time of the Rigveda, they composed some prayers for the cattle, children, and horses. Okay, so they had to protect their cattle and horses because um, they had to battle. They were used in the battles. Okay, so cattle were being captured in the battles and the horses were used in the battles. Okay, and children, for the protection of children, they made prayers for children. Okay, so these horses were yoked to the chariots, and these chariots were used in the battles. Okay, so that is why they also had prayers for the horses. Okay, so the reason for the battles, they had various reasons for battle. That is uh, for water, or maybe to capture the people as slaves, and or maybe to capture the cattle, as I said, or to capture the land. So they also used to battle for capturing the land, because they had to grow the crops, so the hardy crops and the crops which ripened faster, such as barley. Okay, so that is why they also used to battle to capture the lands. Okay, so why they used to battle? For water, that is for water supplies. So at that time, during the period of Rigveda, maybe they had to travel for long distances for water, so they capture the land where they easily get water supplies. Okay, so that is why they had to battle for water and to capture the people and make them as slaves, or to capture the cattle. Okay, so that they can get the animal produce from that. Okay, next, also the land where they can grow crops that are hardy and which can ripen very faster. Okay, so these are the reasons why they used to battle. Okay, so in the battle, they used to get wealth after winning the battles, right? So that wealth was distributed among the leaders, priests, and the people. Okay, so first the wealth obtained from the battle was distributed to among the leaders first. Okay, so then some amount of the wealth was given to the priests, and some amount of the wealth was also given to perform the yagnas or the sacrifices for the safety of that society. They used to conduct some public uh, yagnas or sacrifices. Okay, so in these sacrifices they used to give offerings for the gods and goddesses. So they used to put offerings into the fire, offerings such as ghee, grains, and sometimes even animals. Okay, so again the leftover wealth was distributed among the people. So this is how they distributed the wealth they got from the battles. Okay, so next we will know who used to battle. So the brave men used to participate in the battle. So there were no regular armies during the period of Rigveda. Okay, so only leaders were chosen. Okay, so leaders were chosen by the people based on their skill set and bravery. Okay, so those leaders had to battle and protect his community or his group of people. Okay, so these leaders were mostly men. Okay, so and there were no regular armies, they used to conduct assemblies where all these men used to discuss about the battle and about the wealth, etc. So how the wealth has to be distributed and how the battle should be fought. So all these matters were discussed by the men who met in the assemblies, as there were no regular armies. Okay, so this is how they fought the battles and they distributed the wealth obtained from battles. And we also learned how the leaders were chose. So they were chose based on their bravery and skill set. Okay, and for so what were the prayers made? Okay, so we learned about all these things. So here I mentioned people, right? So in the next topic we are going to learn how people were described. Okay, so what words they used to describe the people. Okay, now we will words used to describe the people. Okay, so people were described based on their work, the language they speak, the place they are from, so the family which they belong to, or the community they belong to, or which culture they follow. Based on all these aspects, people were described. Okay, so there are two groups mentioned in the Rigveda based on their occupation. So the two groups are Brahmins and the Rajas. Okay, so the Brahmins were and or the priests who performed all the rituals, yagnas, and sacrifices, and the Rajas are the people who were the leaders of the community who used to protect the community and fight for the community. Okay, so these Rajas are very much different from the Rajas which we are going to study in the further chapters. Okay, so this the Raja from the Rigveda period is only a leader to a community whose sole responsibility is to protect his community or his people. Okay, So now let us know how they used to describe the community as a whole. So it is described by the word jana or wish. Okay, so the word Vaishya comes from the word wish. Okay, jana means people. So a community as a whole is described as jana or wish, and the word Vaishya comes from the word wish. So Vaishya, about which we will learn more in the next chapters. Okay, so and also there were some people who described themselves as Aryans. So uh, it is so they are described. So the people described themselves as Aryans. So the people who composed hymns described themselves as Aryans and their opponents as Dasas or Dasyus. Okay, so they were the slaves. They were treated as slaves, and they were treated as a property, and they were tortured by their masters. Okay, so there are two words for that is for male and female. Okay, so the male, they are called dasas, and dasi is the word for female. Okay, so basically dasa or dasi means slaves. Okay, dasa is the word for male and dasi is the word for female. Okay, so as this Rigveda was being composed in the northwest region of the Indian subcontinent, so there were other developments going on during this period in the southern part of the Indian subcontinent. So now we will also study about the developments during the period of Rigveda, that is in the so this was in the region of northern parts of India. So we are going to study about the developments of the southern part of India, that is about the burials. So this is all about the Vedas and the Rigveda period, okay, and how people were described.